Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bronx Community Board Special Committee on Racial Equity. I'm Margaret Della. I'm the chair of the committee, and I'm here joined by my colleague.
Althea Ebbo.
Welcome this evening. We've got a lot of work to get through. So we're hoping that a couple of our colleagues will join us. But really, we wanted to get started on some of the work that we wanted to review. So hopefully, some of our colleagues will join us and then we'll talk about the vice chairs. There's an agenda. If everyone has seen it, we welcome the community. Great to have you. We're really interested to hear what you have to say. Um, but according to the agenda, we were going to talk about electing a vice chair or multiple vice chairs. The idea is that the community board, as a part of the city mandate, or sort of what voters voted for several years ago, was that um, community board members, after a certain period of time, would have to roll off of the board and then perhaps take a break for, I don't know, I'm going to get this information wrong, like one cycle or 1 year or something like that. So the idea is that the community board, while it's had long-term members like 30 years, or someone like me who's been on it for like 6 or 8, I can't exactly remember, but this is the opportunity to have other people sort of test their skills and get familiar with the process of what it's like to run committees. Just sort of dipping your toe into the water of Robert's Rules of Order and all that kind of fun stuff. So hopefully we will get to talk about vice chairs this meeting with some of our colleagues joining us. A few of the other agenda items are reviewing the Broadway corridor feedback map and action items. Um, so just to sort of review everyone, so before I get started, community members, we'd love for you to speak um, after we go through this information broadly. If you want to speak, just raise your hand, and we'd love for you to come off or come on video so that we can see your beautiful faces, and unmute you and all that good stuff. But we'd love to hear your feedback. So thank you so much for being here tonight. Um, that being said, I wanted to just go over a couple of items about the Broadway corridor. So in um oh, actually it was Halloween. On Halloween, October 31st, we had a contingent of community board members that walked through the Broadway corridor. And the reason why we did that is because one, the Economic Development Committee usually has merchant corridor walkthroughs, and perhaps there's different reasons for that, but it does happen periodically. But nonetheless, we wanted to check in with the merchants along Broadway, basically from 238 all the way to 225th, even though 225th technically falls into Manhattan. It is a part of our community board district. So we had a walkthrough, we had representation from traffic and transportation. We had members from the public safety committee. We had environment and sanitation. We had some members of the executive, like the officers of the community board. And we also had a staff member from the Department of Sanitation. So we had this walkthrough. It was about 2 hours. We got through probably 25% of the merchants. One, it was just a busy time, but it was great to be able to see the merchants and the community at full tilt when there's a lot of people and commotion and buses and kids coming out of school or trick-or-treating, or just the whole gamut. So it was kind of a challenging time, but it was also a perfect time to go and see what the conditions were along the Broadway corridor. So even though we have from 238 to 225th, we saw, I think, about 45 businesses. So that's like going in, providing information, checking in with them. How are they doing? Anything that they want to share with us, et cetera, et cetera. And so, about 10 people got to about 45 businesses in 2 hours. So that is not um, comprehensive, first of all, but it's a first shot to understand what merchants are dealing with or sort of what the corridor is dealing with. And we know we need to have like offshoots. We need to expand the corridor. We need to take some of the side streets, like, the merchants along 231st or along 238 or, whatever it might be. And the other aspect is that we really focused on small businesses. So there were some big box stores that we popped into because some members may have had long-term relationships with some of those stores, but for the most part, we stayed with small to medium-sized businesses along that corridor. Um, so that's kind of the overview. Althea, do you have any questions or anything else that you wanted to add at this point?
No.
Okay, so I'll ask Isidoro, because you do have your hand up, and I just wanted to know if you had a comment or a question, or maybe that's just my uh, um, little icon thing, but I could have swore you had your hand up. So if you do have a question, I asked you to unmute, and I'd be happy to take it or whatever your comment is. If not, we'll keep trucking. Ooh, Michelle. Okay, great. So we'll keep moving. So the idea of the Broadway corridor, and I'll share this document with you, just so that you can more or less see the corridor itself and what we were talking about. I guess I'll just back up for a quick second. Sorry, I'm having trouble with my little Zoom share. Okay, got it. Um, yeah, let's start with this. So just for um well, actually, let me get to this one later. Let me start with this. So this is the Broadway corridor that we reviewed. And for those community members who just joined, we're just reviewing the Broadway corridor and kind of the overview of the community board visit that was held at the end of October. So if you have any questions or if you want to contribute, please just raise your hand and come on to video, and then please ask your question or your feedback. So basically, from the one train here, which is I think at 242nd, um, that all the way from 242nd to about 225th. So visually, this is supposed to help you. Hopefully, it does. But this kind of gives you an inclination of where some of the challenges are. And so the challenges are highlighted by color. So basically, the the little post-its here in light blue, those are for TNT, they're for MTA, and then the post-its in yellow. Let me try this one. Okay, maybe I won't be able to click on it. Come on, little. Well, this is not really helping. But basically, these little pieces, so the light blue, I believe, is TNT, gives you a sense of some of the challenges in this area. The darker blue, I believe, is sanitation, and then I think maybe the yellow is public safety. But basically, over the course of several months, attempted to review everything that's going on from the construction and the sort of barriers or protections that are supposed to be there, to abandoned cars, to just trash and general things that sanitation has not been attentive to. this is sort of our vision of what equity could be like, and talking about, members of our community getting services and getting their concerns heard. And so oftentimes, the Broadway corridor or even different parts of the district have greater weight over what the city pays attention to versus what it just lets lapse. So this is just an example, and you can see if you are a part of the community board listserv, you can see this map and go through it more in detail. But these are some of the areas that we feel are a challenge. So, for example, at 231st Street, there's a number of barricades, but there's really not any safe protection for people walking along the, crossing at 231st and Broadway, either to come from the train station, going across to different merchants or businesses, and then the northwest corner of 231st and Broadway, there's an insufficient access point for people to get up along the curb. So it's all closed off. For MTA, they have a number of different construction projects going on there. There's a number of barricades. You can't get beyond it if you are in a wheelchair, if you have a stroller, if you're using a walker or those kinds of things. Just yesterday I think it was yesterday or maybe 2 days ago when we had tremendous rain, there was a big, so in that narrow corridor, there's a big puddle that you can't get beyond, just at 231st and Broadway. And so it really just has to be a total mess, for the 400,000 people or some, it's an enormous amount of people who go through that train station on a daily basis. So these are just some of the concerns that we wanted to raise. So again, sorry for the technical issues. Maybe I can fix this while we're meeting. Oh, here, abandoned cars. This is along the reservoir. If people can sort of like orient themselves to where this is in the district. This is Van Cortlandt Park. This is the reservoir. And then obviously this is along the Broadway corridor. So I'll try to fix that. But basically, we created this Broadway corridor overview. So the idea was that the goals were to check in with small businesses, inquire about any issues they might be having with city agencies that the community board can help address. Meaning, like the community board is supposed to ensure that the city services that are being offered are actually doing what they say they're going to do for the community. And if those services are falling through, if there isn't accountability, this is where the community board can step in, and follow up with those city agencies, make sure that there's someone chasing. I mean, the first priority is to go through 311, but the community board can be used to leverage those 311 complaints. And obviously making sure that merchants know about Community Board 8 that they can rely on as a partner. So what we learned or what we saw, is that there's a massive obstruction of businesses along the Broadway corridor, due to MTA construction materials, and there's poor safety conditions. So anyone who goes along Broadway, you're gonna see I think it's about a mile or maybe point 0.8 of a mile from 238 to 225th, that largely there is not much work going on beyond 238 and 225th, sort of at the end caps, but the entire corridor is full of construction materials, haphazard. There's sanitation issues that are going on, but primarily it's also, in addition to be a safety concern, it's blocking businesses. And so most of the businesses who we spoke with, on the east side of Broadway, stretching north to south, were complaining about the construction barriers that they were having, that their business had really dropped off, the parking that allowed, clients to come in and maybe pick up food or run errands, or at least at a minimum get dropped off so that they could enter some of the storefronts, is no longer possible. And so consumers are just basically skipping the Broadway corridor. And so businesses have really suffered. Um, there's some fights that sometimes take place there, but that, those things can happen. But I think, we want to be sure that community members are being protected and that there isn't sort of like this protection by the barriers that might give cover to, things that happen after school. Kids will be kids to a certain extent, but we want to be sure that, kids have a chance to be safe. Road conditions are really poor. The potholes are developing noise. An ATM closed along the Broadway corridor because the obstruction of the construction materials was allowing for robberies or sort of um, people to take refuge within those areas or storefronts. Certain things like pickpocketing and theft are occurring. And then, sort of early in the morning, there's still a concern for businesses to be able to open up um, because there's an obstruction to their doorway, and perhaps, there are people who are hanging out there instead of allowing for customers to come in and out. Um, We did also see or hear reports of illegal dumping. There are some spots, basically around like 234th and Broadway, where people are leaving construction material um, that uh, there was, just dumping outside of the sanitation process. And so some of those businesses were receiving fines from sanitation because of the illegal dumping. Then, we also picked up on some language or cultural barriers that perhaps people were not super thrilled to share any concerns with us, just considering the overall environment. So tonight, we'd like to talk through some of the next steps, and that could be, some recommendations. So for us as SCREE, we are a special committee, so we don't necessarily have the same ability to hold certain agencies accountable or to put forth our own budget recommendations. But what we can do is make recommendations to standing committees about what they can do to hold, entities like sanitation or MTA or NYPD, to make sure that they're performing or providing the services that the community needs. So I'll stop there for a second. I'll stop talking. Althea, anything or any community members who are on the call that would like to say anything or ask any questions? Oh, Sebastian, hey.
Hi, Margaret. Sorry. I'm driving, so I'm not sure if I on the camera.
Okay, be safe. Yeah, you don't have to keep the camera on if you're driving, but be safe.
Margaret, did we get any data on how many 311 calls were made for these complaints before the community board event?
I don't know. I'm not super astute with the the website, that New York City website that allows you to review 311 calls. But I'll ask Artie to help us out with that, because that is something that we should review. And I think one of my questions was, are we getting any 311 concerns or questions? Do people know to use 311, that it could help the conditions of this corridor, or anything in their immediate vicinity? And so we created some flyers that we also posted so that community members, I mean, a lot of people know about 311, but people also just kind of shrug and they're like, well,
Yeah.
they don't have a lot of faith in it. So this was an effort to sort of like encourage people to report complaints through 311. And if they are not resolved, then to come through their elected official or and or the community board,
Yeah.
like I mentioned, so that we could follow up with those city agencies. But I would like to get the 311 data, especially for some of the committees that we mentioned.
Mhm. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Um, so just some high level things, and um, then we can get into coming up with ideas on how we can make recommendations to additional committees. So basically, there's some ideas that we came up with about action steps. So one was to engage community board committees across the board to keep New York City and New York State services accountable to the public. We also wanted to invite health hospitals and social services and the youth committees to be um, a part of these conversations so that they could follow up on some of the concerns that we've already mentioned, creating community board flyers, just keeping those flyers moving and visible and continuing to share them publicly, reviewing 311 data like Sebastian just mentioned, um, setting up quarterly quarter visits, either that's through economic development or through any of the other, it's always a partnership, but it may be something that traffic and transportation would lead or others. So following up with the merchants that we already spoke with, I believe the office is doing that they've already started to follow up over phone because many of the merchants don't have email addresses, and just keeping them informed of some of the upcoming changes by agencies. Like, for example, during this last walkthrough, sanitation came around and reminded small businesses about changes to sanitation effective December 1st. So obviously that date passed, but this walkthrough was in October. Um, we did document the concerns that businesses had that's held here with the office. One of the ideas was to create a community board business bulletin, filling in the gaps between New York City small business newsletter and see how we may want to communicate cross-sector information through a newsletter through the community board. Someone also suggested merchant mixers, bringing merchants out, partnering certainly with the Kingsbridge bid on ways to keep merchants connected and supported through this process. And maybe there's an opportunity to to leverage students or volunteers to help us create a business directory or a map of all of the merchants that reside in our district, because that's a lot of work. So those were some of the ideas that we came up with. Um, so I guess we started creating some of those things, or putting them into the camp here of breaking it down by topic. So this is community board wide, this is traffic and transportation, this is economic development committee, environment and sanitation, and public safety. So I was at one of the community board meetings last night, and they're like, well, why don't you make some recommendations? So that's what we're going to do. Even though we have to tread lightly as a special committee, we can still make recommendations as to where we hope that various committees could take the lead. So that being said, these are a couple of the ideas that I just read off from that walkthrough debrief. So committees across the board, keeping up, uh, you know, this is something that they do anyway. The committees do on a monthly, perhaps daily basis, that they're constantly working with New York City agencies. We could make this more specific. Setting up quarterly walkthroughs, segmenting blocks to cover all of the merchants along this corridor. Adding health, hospitals, social services, and youth committees. Follow up with merchants, blah, blah, blah. I don't need to read all these things. Posting flyers, reviewing 311 data. So, um, with some of these committees, is there anything, Althea, that you would want to add? I'll do more in transferring feedback from the one document to this, but we were just trying to break it down by committee.
Document, okay.
Yeah.
So where you've got add HSS youth, you're gonna make another column for the youth committee, or is that
Yeah, I think so. If they agree to
right?
be a partner on this.
Right. I mean, that would be a concern for me because of the young people. There are a number of schools around. And,
Yeah.
I think it would be useful for them to get involved, especially if children are getting involved in sort of negative
Yeah.
behaviors.
Yeah.
Just some sort of interventions, not punishment, but interventions and
Yeah.
redirecting behavior.
Yeah, and so they can share what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
And so before it gets too far down the track.
Right.
Yeah, an intervention that's okay. Anyone who's joining us tonight, if you'd like to chime in with any ideas,
Also with on the education committee too,
Mhm.
outreach. I'm just thinking of outreach to schools because they're
Yeah.
part of the community and
Yeah.
you know you don't want to identify school as being a problem school. It's usually everybody's problem. You know what I mean? Because children intermingle.
Yeah.
And we do have, I do know sometimes schools show up at that meeting, the education meetings, just so they're aware of what's going on.
Okay, cool. Sorry, this keeps hopping. MTA, they were supposed to be at the last TNT meeting. They did not show. They need to follow up. They promised to come through the corridor and look at some of the safety concerns and ADA accessibility, etc. I don't know that they've done that. There were some improvements, but just walking through, 231st yesterday or 2 days ago with the rain, and looking at some of um the intersections, just having all these people single file across the intersection is not realistic. So I know TNT is following up with MTA. Environment and sanitation. We did ask them to follow up on, so some of the sanitation concerns are behind MTA, the barricades.
Okay.
So that's proving to be difficult for sanitation because once it's behind MTA, it's not like sanitation can do too much about it. Public safety, I am on that committee too, follow up on the abandoned
vehicles, right?
Yeah, vehicles.
And it'd be interesting to know if they've got any figures about the pickpocketing and theft and harassment that the businesses are talking about. Because I haven't heard them talk about that in the public safety meetings as a concern.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seemed like I did ask the lieutenant at the last meeting, and he said they hadn't heard anything.
No, right.
So
So
merchants do have to call 311 or call 911 if those kinds of things are happening.
Because it's part of that quality. What do they call that team again?
The Q team.
The Q team, yes. It's like
Okay. Okay. Anything else you would mention? Think of? I know Daniel, the chair of ENS, was gonna follow up on trash cans. I don't know where it falls, but the bird netting.
yeah.
And I hate to write what it is up on a screen. But birds and their messiness and the netting and the whole mess. I don't know why I don't see it in other parts of the system, but here we have it.
Yeah.
There are other trains above ground.
Right.
Anyway,
Did you, I know I didn't go on that tour, but the vendors who are on the outside, were they interviewed, and or were there any concerns from the businesses about those vendors or anything like that? I mean,
those that have fruit stands
there's
in
fruit stands,
Mhm.
food stands. There's no, I don't know if there's any issues with them regarding those vendors. They seem pretty popular, and I'm guessing they clear up afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, you know.
Yeah, I think someone did ask about that at public safety. Oh, right. There was one business that had some complaints, but their complaint wasn't so much about the vendors existing, but just that like because the construction
Oh, it's
materials,
where they're located. That's
yeah, and they
kind of-
were creating congestion in front of their
Yeah.
business because the construction materials had pushed up so far against the outdoor merchant and then the outdoor
Right.
merchant
It
and
was,
then
it was
sidewalk and then
access,
their
yeah,
business. Yeah.
as opposed to anything else, right?
So and then someone else did raise whether those vendors, yeah, the permits, I don't know, but no one else complained about that.
Right, so they're coexisting
Yeah.
within that space.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Um,
Um,
I know there was also some concerns about land use. We did bring this up to the land use chair. There was a committee meeting, I think maybe in September, about that incoming
Yeah.
business at the corner of 238.
Right.
And they had a big parking lot full of
Abandoned.
abandoned vehicles and a whole lot of mess. But
they said they cleared it.
They
I haven't
did.
been over there in a while, so I'm not sure if it's.
They did. They cleared it and then it kind of regressed a bit, but then they put concrete
Oh, okay.
barricades around the property and now it looks pretty good.
Okay.
So I think that worked. The former Rite Aid property is still a concern. I
It's
think
not supposed to be a supermarket or something.
allegedly. But Rite Aid,
Still vacant, right?
yeah, needs help. Because now it's just like there's some big trucks that are abandoned in the parking lot. They
Right.
do have a barricade, but it's just like trash and abandoned trucks, blah blah blah. I forget what it's called. Oh, Raising Cane. Give
Yeah,
them
that's it.
proper.
Yeah.
They followed up. And they've handled it. So I know that they're going to be coming to redevelop that corner. But for now, in the interim, it looks good. The graffiti's gone. The abandoned, the whole parking lot of abandoned cars is gone. I think also the abandoned cars on the sidewalk in front of that business and like stretching all the way down to 236. Is that what that is? Where NYPD is? That seems to be better. Those cars are just like regular cars parking and moving every few days or whatever. So that seems to be under better conditions as well. It's not like abandoned cars that are there for weeks and weeks on end. So um also just to share that at one of the public safety meetings that it must be through 311 or through other means, but that there is a city agency that has basically a list of abandoned cars or cars to be towed. And so while NYPD provides its own list of abandoned cars or complaints or things that they witness in the community, there's also another list that the city has. So the city has been trying to stay on top of removing abandoned cars. So they have their own list. They come through and they remove those cars. And so I think NYPD and the city, I don't know what agency this is, but they have been, I think, doing a better job of removing cars that have been just dropped for one reason or another. I haven't been around the reservoir in the last several weeks. But looking at the reservoir on the east side of the reservoir, I'd be curious to know if anyone knows how that stretch looks, because that's typically where they have the tractor trailers that are abandoned, or kind of like temporary housing for people living out of RVs. I also noticed along like Van Cortlandt Park South, where just across the street from that school renovation, that there's a number of tractor trailers that park there, and NYPD shared that that stretch, as well as the stretch along Van Cortlandt Park, like further to the north of the district along Broadway, that there are other abandoned tractor trailers there, and they load them up and they leave their materials in there, or sometimes they employ brakes so that those trailers can't be moved. Yeah. So I think there's a number of dynamics going on, but NYPD is trying to stay on top of it. And the committee has been regularly pressing NYPD to stay on top of it, because they had expressed that they were out of capacity, because there's a number of cars that had been left along Broadway between like 232nd and 234th, that were like either under investigation or damaged or different things like that. And we also wanted those cars that looked totaled to be removed as well. So that seems to be better over the last couple of months as well. That's what I know. Let's see. So I think that kind of captures it. But so I think we have some follow-up steps with our colleagues from other committees. Just kind of skim this to see if anything else. But I think certainly we want to work with the bid in Kingsbridge and make sure that that we're supporting them in the process too. I know that they do this work day in and day out. So however we can be working with them, I think is optimal. Illegal, I mean, maybe here we could put the business directory. Okay, so certainly if people who are on the line tonight have other ideas, you're welcome to share them with the office, and we can add them into our minutes. And I'll try to clean this up a little bit. We can think about other ideas that we may have and try to capture them here and then share them with the full board maybe next week when we have our full executive full board meeting. Okay. Anything else, Althea, you'd say? Things we need to look into?
I think that's about it. Yeah, I can't think of anything right now.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Or some.
Go ahead, Sebastian.
Yeah, I just wanted to find out, like, as a community board, are we allowed to give materials to community, like immigration resources?
Like know your rights
No, you're right.
materials?
You know, if they can call get some legal help, or how
Mhm.
what to do, are we allowed to distribute it or put it on our website?
Yes, we do have know your rights information on the website. I think maybe February, the community board had a training, and I think they
Yeah.
provided that information. But yeah, we could definitely make sure that that information is hard copies included in the materials that we distribute in the walkthroughs, or send it out through email communication.
And I don't know, are we allowed to add it on the budget as an expense item to have more legal help available? Or resources?
Yeah.
We had a community event earlier on this year that addressed that, and they provided a number of resources. Maybe that's something, because it's such it's ongoing thing. It might be something the community board could do again, because I remember them having that meeting and I went to that. And it had some of the issues that Sebastian was talking about, just where people can go for resources and help and their rights as well. So that'd be good to have another one of those.
Okay.
I don't remember who. Yeah, I just know it was the community board who did it, who organized it.
Okay. While we have Sebastian here, if there's nothing else, I'm gonna pivot to the next topic. So I'll add this in. Sebastian, of course, you're always welcome to share your ideas with me. And I'll share them with Althea. If you don't have her contact information, or share it with both of us, we'll be happy to converse further.
Let me see. I'm sure it's there. I don't know where it would go. I know there was. I'm just thinking about the businesses that were unwilling to engage, and that lack of trust, and you're talking about cultural barriers. So maybe there's something about engaging other community board members who might be able to help with the communication and creating that trust between the community board and those members of the community, because we represent everybody, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how we put that or where it would go, but but there's some building of bridges there, I think, that's necessary.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Okay. So, like I said, well, we have Sebastian here. So I think so this is just to help everyone understand what this is. This is again a map of the community board. So every year the community board requests expense and capital funding for the district. So expense is like 35,000 and under, meaning like, it could be I don't know, a bunch of computers for a school, or it could be, I don't know, a vehicle, maybe that's wrong, but a vehicle that falls under 35,000 or whatever. Capital by New York City guidelines is above that request. So this can look like a lot of different things. It can look like bathroom renovations in a park. It can look like security cameras near merchant areas. It can look like renovating a playground, water runoff areas, reconstructing the shorefront, all those kinds of things. So again, using the same map of the district, this white part here, that's the community board district, from fiscal year 16 to 26, the community board has basically mapped all of those capital expenses so that we could understand what the requests were by the community board, and then certainly where do all these requests fall in the district, et cetera, et cetera. So this is also available on the community board website. And this will show you all of the various requests color coded by fiscal year, and then you can review those. So we also created an overview. I feel like I'm missing it here, but we created an overview of which of these projects has been funded. So this is a Broadway corridor. And we wanted to review the screen map based on what had been funded or what completed its funding. So I think I'm missing this. I don't think it's up here. Shoot. I'll see if I can try and find it, but basically maybe we need to talk about this next time because it's not up. But we just went through this map and identified what are the key areas that have been requested, like the most frequently requested items, along with where their status was in terms of what had been funded and what is still outstanding. So in particular, some of the areas where we had not made any progress was the Bailey Playground, which is around 232nd, 234th, and Bailey Avenue between Bailey and Broadway, basically. So that was one of the biggest concerns. Some of the playgrounds like Fort 4, some of the waterfront renovations also had not been addressed. We are proud of the work that has been done with the Ford Independence houses as well as Bailey houses, and Marble Hill houses, actually. There's a number of capital projects, everything from sidewalks to elevators to the roof, HVAC, etc. Those are massive projects that have been undertaken. So those were some of the concerns. Let me just see if I can follow up with Artie. No. Looks like I did not include it in what I sent to Artie. Poor Artie, he was so confused. Oh yeah, I found it. Oh, maybe this is why, because Julie, our board chair, wanted me to make some additions or make some revisions, and I forgot to do that. That's probably why. So let me just take one quick second, pull that up, and I can share that with everyone for a follow-up. Hi, Michelle. Go ahead.
Hi. Thank you so much for going through all of this. I know I just kind of popped up in here unannounced, but I was going through the community board minutes and like hitting agendas at like 6:47, and I was like, wait, this is today. I should go. And so it's something that was on my radar. Obvious. Oh, okay.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it was obviously something that was on my radar in terms of writing a follow-up story. I so I kind of want to go through some of my notes that I took because I've spoken to businesses as well, and then some of the notes that I took during this meeting. Would you have any time for, a phone call or anything tomorrow?
Sure, it just has to go through the community board, but yeah, if you send an email, then I can loop in the office, certainly.
Awesome. Okay, great. I'll send an email to the community board and ask them to loop you in.
Okay, cool.
Okay, awesome.
Thanks so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Yeah,
This was
thank you,
great.
Michelle. I mean, you
Awesome.
did a great job asking merchants during that walkthrough what their experience was. We really appreciate you being there.
Of course.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
the follow-up.
No, of course. And this was really interesting, so I really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay, have a
And you
nice.
gave me just enough time to find this dang spreadsheet.
Yeah.
So thank you. All right, so here is I know I still have Sebastian on here as well, but so for example, these are the capital requests. So previously I was just sharing the map. These are the actual locations. So you can see from like 17 all the way to 26. Nothing, these Bailey Playground redesign has been top of the community board requests. We need to ask our council members where this stands. In their defense, it is a multi-million-dollar project. So it is something that's going to take time and a lot of money and cross collaboration across the Bronx, in this area of the Bronx, probably incorporating the state, the borough president, everybody, because it's such a massive amount of money, and I'm sure they work on this behind the scenes, but I just wanted to be able to share this. So this is a document that's a work in progress, but it just shows what are some of the asks and what their status is. Bathroom renovations were funded, I believe. So these are some, I should qualify these responses. This is not just what I think, but I went through the city responses. So every year when the community board sets its priorities of expense requests and capital requests, maybe like 6 to 9 months later, city agencies send a follow-up of what is possible to be funded, or just like, thanks so much, that's impossible, or follow up with this city agency to learn about the status of the project, or to incorporate it with an existing project. So these are some of the responses, paraphrased responses, so that we can follow up on them. So again, this is a work in progress, but I just wanted to be able to share this, and we can organize by fiscal year. And Julie wants me to create this more succinctly so that it's not such a long document. But for right now, just the ease of use, this is, all of the requests in fiscal year 17. These are the committees, the Bronx Community Board 8 committees, the requests themselves, and then the status of those requests. And then sometimes we just don't know. So that's just what that means. But we will follow up on this, and Sebastian, since we're on the budget committee together, and we'll be working on this over in the year ahead, and some of the asks, we can go through this more closely. We have not been able to do that. But this is just trying to help us understand where all of these capital requests stand. So I did not do the same thing. I have not done the same thing for expense requests, because expenses are still 35,000 and under, and these are some of the biggest quality of life, health and safety concerns that we have in the district. So that's why I focused on the capital requests. Any questions, comments? I know it's super small, sorry. I don't know if it helps to enlarge it, or maybe this. That's the end of it. Yeah. And while we're just um gently scrolling through this just to give people a sense of what it is. Sebastian also had a really great idea of, and Sebastian, maybe you want to share it, of asking the community for input on these
Yeah,
or future
or
requests.
maybe reaching out to the community through social media so they can send suggestions and then we can forward it to the committees for discussion. And if they want to add it to the 28 list.
Okay, great. And so I think in addition to like the requests that come through, well, one, I guess we should take a proper point of process here in that if you have an idea, something that you want funded, and you know kind of which committee would 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 fall under. Like if you step streets is one thing that I'm always talking about. I know a lot of people always talk about step streets and getting them renovated. So that's actually traffic and transportation, right? I think that's right. And so um, looking at the committees, attending some of those meetings so that you can contribute during those standing committee conversations on what should be budget or expense or capital requests. You can do that as well. And like Sebastian said, he's got a great idea to try to engage the community more in some of these requests. And then perhaps we could also leverage some of the community participation in the participatory budgeting process with council members and just get the feedback that the community has already shared with our two council members, and incorporate those asks into the community or into the committee consideration. Okay, so we basically got through 26. I don't know how that's done there. Anyway, so that's what this is. Any other questions on this? Or suggestions, more importantly, on like how to improve it? Okay. Okay, did we get through everything? So that gets us through our two big discussion points for our agenda. Any other objectives you think we should cover for the year, Althea?
I think we got quite a bit there.
Agreed. Okay, so then, Althea, do you want to be vice chair? Is that a yes? Okay, great. So then meeting dates. Usually, what we do is that we have one or two other meetings in like between January and May. Do you have a preference? I usually skip January because we're like the first Thursday. It's impossible with holidays and
Yeah.
such. So would you like to do February? I don't think we have really any holidays scheduled.
No, I might be away in February because my mother, I have to accompany my mother when she's traveling at this point. But let's just go with February. Let me see.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if you're traveling, we can always adjust. We can see if there's another day we can take.
Right.
Okay. So let's shoot for
January. Oh gosh.
I know.
26.
I know, right? So we'll shoot for February and for April. And then usually the month of May, we compile what other standing committees have done throughout the year. We, start to tie a bow on some of our our processes to capture them in the interim report, which is we submit to the board in June. So it's basically just like collecting all the work that not only SCREE but other committees have done to advance equity in the district. So usually May is just kind of a working virtually month between committee members, and then we submit the final interim report, which includes an executive summary and updated data on our capital requests, and we'll have a lot to do with the Broadway corridor, but that's all paperwork. And then I think there'll be an opportunity for a quarterly walkthrough or two in the spring. So we can
Okay.
always partner with other committees and keep the work going. So, but the goal is to meet in February
Okay,
and then in April.
all right,
Okay, cool.
okay.
Any last comments, questions from the community?
None. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Motion to you make it.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Have a great night.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye.